Okay, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Wherever you are joining us from across the globe, welcome. Welcome to World Urban Parks' launch of our Healthy Parks, Healthy Cities statement. We have speakers from the east coast of New Zealand through to the west coast of the United States. This is World Urban Parks' last event in support of the IUCN's Urban October, and today we are celebrating World Cities Day. Before we get underway, you can ask questions in the chat box and we will look to answer them after the presentations. Our first speakers today are Kristen Jackson and Hannah Chapman-Carr. Kristen has 30 years experience in the parks and recreation industry at state and local government level in Australia. She's currently the manager of active communities at Cardinia Shire Council. She's a director of World Urban Parks Board and chair of the World Urban Parks, Healthy Cities Committee. Hannah is a young professional with a passion for supporting and empowering other young professionals, as well as advocating for the importance of parks for people. She recently joined the World Urban Parks Board and is the executive officer for the Healthy Parks, Healthy Cities Committee. They will outline the Healthy Parks, Healthy Cities statement and present the new infographic that they have developed. Over to Kristen and Hannah.
Thanks, Mark. Let me just share. Oh, sorry, everyone, getting the technical. Can you see that screen okay? Give me a nod, Hannah, if you can. Great, okay. Well, good morning, everyone from Melbourne, Australia. And yes, on behalf of the World Urban Parks, Healthy Cities Committee, it is Hannah's and my real pleasure this morning to officially launch the Healthy Parks, Healthy Cities position statement. We've been working on this statement for a while, and its launch was delayed by COVID, except that that's really been a blessing in disguise, because now we've been able to incorporate the importance of parks, which COVID-19 has actually shown, into our statement. So our statement says that a healthy city sustains healthy people. And we know that for the first time in history, more of the planet's population now live in urban areas. And our cities really need parks that are vibrant, sustainable, accessible, and well-planned and designed. And the impact of COVID-19 has really shown us that it's not just our big showy parks that are really important for people, but it's also the local parks in people's neighbourhoods that have been so important during the various lockdown periods across the world during this pandemic. So we have a call to action that World Urban Parks will represent and promote the role of parks in contributing to healthy cities, and that we will foster and engage international networks to exchange knowledge about our parks. And Hannah's going to talk a little bit more about what our committee's doing, and also to accumulate and spread the knowledge about the benefits and value of parks and the contribution that they make in a variety of ways, and also to encourage advocacy and expand cross-sector engagement about this important topic. I'm going to hand over. So that's officially our position statement launched, and that's going to be available on the World Urban Parks webpage, which Hannah will let us know about. So I'm going to hand over to Hannah now for the launch of our infographic. Thanks, Hannah.
Thanks, Kristen. Good morning to everyone. I'm in Auckland, New Zealand. It's a pleasure to be with you. And like Kristen said, it's great that we can launch this position statement. And it was unfortunate that we couldn't have it launched earlier with COVID, but it is good that we've been able to incorporate some of those benefits that COVID has shown us, that parks really do contribute to the health of our cities. So as a committee, we've been developing this infographic, and what we really wanted to capture is the 4 different types of health that parks contribute to a city. So obviously there's people's individual mental health, there's the environmental health, there's social health and physical health. So we wanted to capture what is being increased and what is being decreased by parks. So we have the various arrows that are demonstrating how parks either lower crime, or they might increase social cohesion, or they increase physical activity and lower some of the physical health diseases. We also have the environmental health, the air quality increasing and reducing urban heat island effects, as well as improving mental health well-being and reducing stress and anxiety. So we're really pleased to have this infographic to go alongside our position statement. And this will be on our webpage. So we have a Healthy Parks, Healthy Cities webpage, which you'll be able to find under the leadership section and then under the advocacy section on the World Urban Parks website. So we'll have the position statement and infographic up on there. We also have some resources from within our committee that are showing case studies of healthy parks contributing to healthy cities, but we are calling for more resources and case studies from around the globe. So if you have some and you would like to share them, please send them through to the Healthy Parks, Healthy Cities email address, which I can put in the chat. And we would love to have more resources around the globe showing what healthy parks do for healthy cities. So thank you.
Thanks, Hannah. And thank you for the opportunity to launch our position statement and infographic this morning. Thank you, World Urban Parks, on behalf of our committee. And back to you, Mark.
Thank you both very much. Thank you, Kirsten. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you for getting the statement off with a great launch, and for the wonderful infographic that you've developed there as well, and gets us off to a great start. So next up is Anthony Paul, AP Diaz. AP is an executive officer of the Los Angeles Department of Recreation and Parks and a board member of World Urban Parks. AP styles himself as just a guy who loves LA, framed in wanderlust, parks, law, sport, music, and the pursuit of happiness, with a fervent belief that parks make life better. So AP will be telling us about how parks contribute to healthy cities. Over to you, AP.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you, Hannah, and for those great words. And thank you, fellow panelists, and welcome. So really excited to be part of this panel. I do agree with the statements that now more than ever, the meaning of healthy parks and healthy cities couldn't be more evident, and really will be the silver lining to come out of COVID for the park profession. So I would like to walk you through this sort of what I believe are, and our committee and World Urban Parks believes are the therapeutic benefits of parks and open spaces in the post-pandemic world. So certainly right now we're looking at how we can just survive, but together we need to look how we can heal the world post-pandemic. And that, in my opinion, is going to be through parks and open spaces. Sorry, I'm just losing my, here we go. That's me in Los Angeles. So, you know, 2020 has brought about, we're calling it the Great Pause. And it's a time when it's going to be a year to remember. There's a myriad of challenges going on around the world, right? Social injustices, political elections, civil unrest, and not to mention that every single person on the planet is experiencing COVID. So we've come to a complete grind, but I believe now more than ever, the world is going to be hungry for peace and for nature and well-being. And so together, when we ask you to respond to the calls of action in the statement that we've released, we're asking you to join us as that cross-sector engagement to really demonstrate to the world that parks will help heal the world, and how we as park professionals can amplify our voices to highlight the tremendous benefits parks will and can serve to heal us out and through this COVID-19 time. You know, when we started the pandemic, I was looking at statistics across the world. Some of your countries are represented, and this is a snapshot of what the Global Health Security Index claimed to be the most prepared nations around the world to deal with the pandemic. But quickly, the pandemic showed us that it had different results for the world. And, you know, in a matter of times, this slide now is so outdated because things move so quickly. But in comparison, what's happening in the United States and the European Union, the United States that was ranked the highest in preparedness is now leading the world in COVID cases. Some 89,000 alone just reported this last Thursday on one single day. And so all it continues to show us is that we need to have a paradigm shift in how we approach our world and our government and the important values to uphold. So the COVID-19 response is showing us that we are experiencing anxiety and loneliness and stress, everything that's the antithesis of health and wellness. Everyone around the world is trying to find the solutions, and you have everyday citizens trying to be heroes like this gentleman in Venice Beach, California. But the true heroes right now are the doctors and scientists. But they are going to equip us and give us that vaccine so that we can get back together. And then we as park professionals in our own world can help, be the sort of nature open space heroes. We have to continue to stay strong and really demonstrate that we believe that there is an end to it. And I believe we have a role to play as park leaders and professionals to really keep that message of hope alive. So we do not know when COVID will end, but one thing for sure we can all count on is that we will be a world in a need of healing. So it's a time for the parks prescriptions to get us better. So let's look at the silver linings. What are the silver linings of COVID for our profession, and how does it relate to a healthy city, healthy world? As this gentleman, or as this female, this woman from Civic Commons in Boston said so well, Bridget Marquis, she said, I hate to say there's a silver lining to COVID, but it's a time to recognize what we prioritize in this country. I hope that part of the legacy will be an equitable and resilient investment strategy in the public realm, right? So let's take that further. Can we use this moment to transform our crisis into health and wellness? So park advocates can really demonstrate, I believe, to our leaders that as part of the larger economic recovery, that the community investment plans in parks is showing us that it is very smart to invest in places of health and well-being, whether that's open door space or playground structures or therapeutic parks. The more that we can do to provide health and wellness opportunities to urban places will be a tremendous benefit to anyone. I like to say, and I know many of my colleagues, as well as all of you, would join me in saying that parks are as important as roads and bridges. They are vital infrastructure. They're not the get to later equipment. They don't require memberships or special status. They are where people from different backgrounds come together and find themselves on equal footing. And that's what we want to promote through World Urban Parks, that we are essential to the democratic experience and really can help transform the world. And I fervently believe that. And the statement released today emphasizes why that's so important. As we wrap up my portion here, I like to say, and it's a statement that we use a lot in the United States in our logo marketing, is that parks make life better. We know this, but it's time to demonstrate it. It not only just is a therapeutic benefit of taking a jog or having a picnic, it really can help fight against mental health issues, anxiety, stress, and making sure that these positive effects are contributing to our nations. I'm excited to be in this profession with you because there really is a tangible space to find a way out. I believe the best is yet to come. I believe the citizens of Melbourne, Paris, Rome, any city really now today is going to be hungry to return to normalcy and to feel the sunlight on their face and the soil beneath their feet. And it's our job to ensure, advocate, fight, and come together to remain vigilant, but to demonstrate why our worth is worthy of investment and continued strength. So here's some of my information. Happy to continue the conversation. So thankful to World Urban Parks and to be in the company of such great people. And thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, EP, for that high energy, optimistic message. The best is yet to come, although you did share some sobering graphs and charts amongst that as well. Thank you. Next, we move to Tim Gear. Tim holds a degree in urban horticulture and has 43 years of experience in local government in Australia in parks and recreation facilities. He's currently the co-chair of the World Urban Parks Asia Pacific region, and Tim will be advising us on engaging international networks. Over to you, Tim.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks everyone for the time this morning. It's morning in Australia. If my sound isn't great, I apologise. It's because it is thundering down outside with rain. So we'll do our best. Okay, I'll just get this going. Okay, can we see that? Yep. Okay, so I'm going to cover off on the fostering of and engaging with the international networks and collaboration. So to start with, World Urban Parks in itself is an international network. We have members right across the globe in all continents except Antarctica, of course, and we have a lot of individual and organisational membership. And within that, there are networks within the network, and all working for the same goals of promoting and supporting healthy cities, or older adults, or other things that may be under the World Urban Parks Charter. So World Urban Parks aims to provide the global unified voice, supporting the values and benefits of urban parks and green spaces, healthy parks, healthy cities, etc. And we aim to foster and engage with the international network and exchange knowledge, as is stated in the statement. Collaborate to the mutual benefit of all to achieve a greater outcome. And this is critical. We can achieve so much more working together as professionals across the globe than we can sitting in our own office or trying to do things on our own. And the principles we apply when we're establishing the network within World Urban Parks is we get to know who our partners are. So we might say, right, we want to go out and form an alliance with the World Health Organization. And that's a very large beast that we need to fully understand and work with the appropriate people. You're not going to get a great deal of achievement if you go, say, to somebody who's working on a vaccine and that's their primary focus, they're clinical medicine people, and we're talking about mental health, community health, well-being. So we need to find the people that are of the same mind, the same focus as we have. So we're looking for commonalities. We focus on those common strategies. And so to do that, you need to know who your partners are. You need to ensure you have clear goals. So there's no good going into a network meeting, having a bit of a chat. Next meeting, you'll find no one comes back to see you. You need to make sure you have clear objectives, clear goals, and where you're going. You can use the network to, they could be for education, for sharing knowledge, conferences, seminars. That's very common across the globe, but it could also be in research, peer reviews, technical or scientific exchange, working parties, and so forth. And again, we have probably all of these in some way or another at various scales across World Urban Parks. Make sure everybody comes away from the network having gained something from it. And the other critical thing to be is be genuine. Don't go in looking for your hidden agenda. Go in working together all the way. So some case studies we have in World Urban Parks. We formed when COVID started off, we very quickly formed a network of international experts and we pulled them together. Now, all of these people were working on their own in the background to try and achieve the same results. And with working together, or us bringing them together and giving them an opportunity, we achieved a great deal more. We were able to release the statements on COVID, on the World Urban Parks and the panel's position on COVID. We're able to, since then, release statements on housing for all, access to parks for all. A terrific network of like-minded people. I did mention WHO earlier, and it is a large beast. So how we've been working with WHO is you look through within the organisation as to which business unit of the organisation ties in with your objectives, ties in with your targets. And we started back in 2017 with the Older Adults Committee, and we worked with the WHO's global network of age-friendly cities and the department within WHO that organises and coordinates that network. So basically, we were able to then come up with a project that we would work together. We had clear goals. We were going to have a virtual internship that studied looked at all the evidence-based research that's out there in the world in relation to the benefits of parks on older adults, and pull that together and establish a database that could be then disseminated through our network, and who could also disseminate it through their network. And we have a graduate student working through Edinburgh University carrying out that as we speak. And that's a great project. We're currently working with the WHO's European Centre of Environment and Health in Bonn, Germany. And the aim there is because they are directly working on community health and mental health. So we're working on health links, particularly mental health links back to green space, air quality and green space. And they are working on tools, and we'll help them with that, with the testing of those tools for measuring those benefits. And again, these are things that'll all feed back into the whole concept of healthy parks, healthy cities, and greater benefit for everyone. So moving on, the key takeaways from this is we really need to know who our partners are. We need to set them goals and be genuine. Don't be frightened to reach out. We couldn't establish networks if we didn't ask in the first place. And sometimes going to a very large organisation might seem daunting, but as I say, you don't ask, you don't get. So we go in with an open mind, and we're prepared to give as freely as we receive. Even if sometimes you're receiving back less, give as freely as you can and be as genuine as you can. So that's my summing up of networks. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Tim, for a thought-provoking contribution. Please, can people continue to put questions in the chat? Thank you to Neil, who's put one there. Tim, I've offered you up as a first chance when we are finished with the presentations to have a go at Neil's question. Thank you to Douglas for sharing some supporting information about work that they're doing in Ohio. So next up, we have Joe Hopkins. Joe is the chair of the IUCN WHCPA. I'm not quite sure I know all the initial stands for, Health and Wellbeing Specialist Group. But Joe was a part of the team that established Healthy Parks, Healthy People Initiative, and has continued with that work for over 20 years. And Joe will be telling us about developing and spreading knowledge. Joe, over to you.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, thanks for that. I hope you can see that. It's great to be here today. Nature provides the ultimate foundations for life and health, and this has long been acknowledged by traditional owners and traditional custodians of the land. Here in Australia, we have a message, or the Indigenous people have a message. If you care for country, country cares for you. This is a powerful message, and it reminds us just how reliant on nature and the land we are for our existence, for our body, mind and soul. And it also reinforces that to benefit from nature, we need to conserve and protect it. We are all part of the natural world. And today, parks and green spaces are vital for people's access to the health benefits of nature, and urban parks for many are the first experience of nature and a gateway to the natural world.
Joe,
However,
Joe, can I pause you? Your slides haven't come up, I'm afraid. You may want to try again.
Apologies.
That's okay, they're there now though, brilliant.
All good?
Yep, that's great, thank you.
Apologies, Mark. Having a little bit of technical difficulties here.
I think down at the bottom left-hand side of your screen, maybe.
Hey, Joe, I have those up for you if you just want to let me know when to change slides for you.
Thank you. You've got them up for me now, have you, Maggie?
Yep, you're good to go. I'm on slide 2. Which slide would you like?
I'd like to go to slide 3. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Apologies, people. However, we know that the sprawling urbanisation and shrinking natural spaces are disconnecting much of our global population from the natural world and the natural environment. And as a result, our declining physical, mental and social health and well-being. For several decades now, societies have evolved and the environments in which people live have been the subject of much concern. Next slide, Maggie. Over 20 years ago, Parks Victoria developed the Healthy Parks, Healthy People approach to park management. And it's based on the concept that our healthy ecosystems support healthy societies. A team of people within the organisation at the time took to branding the phrase and developing a framework around it. Parks Victoria's current Healthy Parks, Healthy People framework shows the link between how we value and manage nature between people and culture. Healthy parks make healthy people, and healthy people will be the strongest advocates and stewards of green spaces. Next slide. However, almost as simultaneously as the brand was being developed, the research was growing. Several state of the evidence reviews, primarily done by Deakin University in Australia, saw a large influx of the health benefits of nature research starting around the early 2000s. And as you can see, that nature is, the evidence is really easy to talk about. Next slide. And it's fair to say that the conservation sector, and in particular park management agencies, have taken a lead with regards to advocating for the health benefits of nature. Parks Victoria may have started Healthy Parks, Healthy People, but there are now so many organisations and countries doing things similar and better in the USA, Canada, Korea, Colombia, the UK, Scotland, Finland, New Zealand, Africa. And many of these agencies are leading the way to develop integrated policy, build partnerships, develop programs, and continue to build the evidence while advocating for nature. Next slide. So over the last decade, there have been significant international developments. Just press the arrow down, Maggie, and the milestones have helped shape the agenda, the health and nature agenda. I'm going to pick out a couple of events that have happened. Next slide. Arrow down. At the World Parks Congress in 2014, there was an entire stream that was dedicated to improving health and wellbeing. And National Geographic at the time stated that the link between health and nature was in the top 5 take-home messages for that important event. Next slide. Actually, at that event, a medical doctor, Dr. Jonathan Patz, stated that in his professional opinion, that conservation biologists can actually save more lives and prevent more illness than the health sector. And at that same event, there was many statements made. Then in 2016, the global movement Nature for All was launched, and it's really simple. At its core, it is to understand, to get people to experience and connect and share their love of nature. And then the last part of that slide is the 2016 World Conservation Congress, where the IUCN and over 8,000 participants and members passed a resolution to enable the IUCN and the World Health Organization to develop cross-sector partnerships to better recognise the contributions of nature to health, wellbeing and quality of life. Next slide. The importance of access to nature and parks has never been so evident than during the restrictions and lockdown. Next slide. The response to the COVID pandemic, the restrictions and the lockdown that we have all faced have really changed people's attitudes to nature, especially in and around where they live. Many people in communities have developed a fiercely local mindset where they will demand more access to nature, better nature, more livable and healthy cities. And open space and park managers must think about how to multi-purpose these assets. It's not good enough anymore to have single-use assets, especially like large green open golf courses. We've had a situation right here where I live where the community are demanding access to that beautiful open space area. And the responsibility for urban conservation and community reliance and resilience must be shared across sectors, through government, through business and the NGO sector. And each must really rethink what role they will play in this space. Next slide. So just to finish up, I'm going to paraphrase Dr. Gus Speth. He's an environmental lawyer and previous advisor to Bill Clinton. And he's previously stated that he's thought that the most pressing environmental problems of our time were biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse and climate change. But he's since changed his mind, stating now that selfishness, greed and apathy are the most pressing problems. And to deal with those problems, a cultural transformation is needed. And COVID-19 may just be that catalyst for a cultural transformation. Thanks.
Thank you, Jo, for that tour de force on healthy parks, healthy people. I see there's some questions coming through from Jim, thank you, and from Anna. We'll pick them up after Jane, but before Jane, our penultimate speaker this evening is Dominic Register. Dominic is the Programme Director at Salzburg Global Seminar. Dominic spent 5 years of his life in Dhaka and 2 years in Jakarta with a 15-month spell in Singapore. So fully appreciates the difference that parks and clean air can make to city life. Dominic will be advising us on cross-sector engagement. Dominic, over to you.
Thanks, Mark. Can everyone see my screen? Is that okay? Well, I'm sure someone will tell me if they can't. Great. So as Mark said, I work at Salzburg Global Seminar. We're an independent, not-for-profit organisation set up just after the Second World War and based in Salzburg in Austria. And our core mission is to challenge current and future leaders to shape a better world. One of the programs that I work on is called Parks for the Planet. And it's really through that work that we've been able to develop a partnership with World Urban Parks. So 31st of October is World Cities Day, and the theme for 2020 is Better City, Better Life. Parks make cities better and improve the quality of life for citizens who live there now and for citizens who will live there in the future. This was true pre-pandemic, and it's even more true now. As AP said earlier this evening, parks make life better. The work that we do at Salzburg Global is typically highly interdisciplinary and also very international. And so I shall try to make the advocacy case for parks from both an interdisciplinary perspective and from an international perspective, looking particularly at issue through a health lens, through a societal lens, and through an environmental lens, following the infographic that Kristen shared at the beginning of the webinar. A couple of months ago, sorry, there was a brilliant meeting of the minds webinar with an interview with the Vice President from the Trust for Public Land, who, speaking in reference to America, said that parks have never been more used and never been more appreciated at any time in America's history. And at the same time, they've never been under greater threat. And I would argue that that is just as true in America as it is in many, many other parts of the world, which is why the release of this statement today is so timely and so necessary. So some of what I'm going to say has already been touched on already, but the link between visiting and exercising in parks and improved mental and physical health is well proven. There is an abundance of evidence that shows how time spent in nature can lower stress levels, can decrease blood pressure, can reduce the risk of asthma or allergies or diabetes or cardiovascular disease. And there is an abundance of evidence that shows how time spent in nature is good for mental health. There was a study done in the UK this year. The research was conducted pre-COVID-19, but it was released about a month ago, that came up with the figure of 120 minutes per week as being the minimum amount of time which is needed in order to start deriving all of these different health benefits. There was a study from last year conducted by the Barcelona Institute for Global Health that concluded that city dwellers live longer in leafy neighborhoods, as if the already stated medical evidence wasn't compelling enough. And with regards to our current crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic, there's a really important study from Japan, which set a lot of the global agenda, showing how the chance of catching coronavirus is almost 20 times higher indoors than it is outdoors. From a societal point of view, then parks are absolutely critical, both for individuals and for communities. One of the most obvious impacts of the pandemic is that urban dwellers are needing and using more outdoor space than ever before. And many cities have seen new public space being opened, new parks being created. There's been a wave of open streets movements. Streets account for about 80% of public space in many, many cities. So closing them off to cars and opening them up for people has been a really positive development. National park systems are serving as an absolute lifeline for many, many urban communities, not just for where people go for exercise and recreation, but also where they're going to socialize and to meet. The picture on the top right of the screen is of a brand new urban park that launched 2 months ago in Bangkok, the Phra Pok Klau Sky Park, built on an elevated rail line that had been unused for more than 3 decades, I think, and it now spans the river and is connecting communities on different sides. So there are positive stories of urban renewal coming out of the current crisis. Now, the sub-theme for this year's World Cities Day is valuing our communities and cities, and there is a really critical issue around equity of access to urban parks, which obviously predates the pandemic, as the picture of Mumbai on the bottom right of the screen shows, but it's been absolutely highlighted in multiple ways during COVID-19. So for significant numbers of people living in slums and informal settlements, they're disproportionately impacted by environmental degradation, including air, water and soil pollution, by natural disasters and by inequitable access to green and recreational spaces. And COVID-19 has highlighted all of these risks and threats in multiple ways. Trust for Public Land analysis showed that across the United States, parks serving primarily non-white populations are half the size of parks that serve majority white populations and are typically 5 times more crowded. And in addition, parks serving majority low-income households are on average 4 times smaller and 4 times more crowded than parks that serve majority high-income households. In Mexico City, the WRI Ross Center for Sustainable Cities had found that the wealthiest neighborhoods have 35 times better access to public space within a 20-minute trip than poorer neighborhoods. And in South Africa, a study published in July of this year found that white neighborhoods were 700 meters closer to public parks, had nearly 12% more tree cover and 9% more vegetation than mostly black areas. So the issues of inequality and inequality of access to public space span across the globe and need to be a critical component of the debate and dialogue around funding for public space moving forward. The next lens I wanted to look at really quickly was the environmental value that urban parks bring to local economies and national economies. So there's the way in which parks preserve and protect nature. There's really interesting new data also from the Trust for Public Land looking at the relationship of urban parks on urban heat islands, and that communities that are within a 10-minute walk of parks can be as much as 6 degrees cooler during summer. And then there is also obviously the much discussed and researched evidence around the role that urban parks play in reducing air pollution and reducing water pollution. So urban parks offer multiple benefits to cities. I don't think there's anyone on this call who would disagree with that. What we need to see, I think, happen as we move out of the pandemic is many more national and international narratives making these points and making these connections across different geographies. That's why many of the organisations involved on this call have come together to help initiate something called the Urban Parks, Urban Futures series of public roundtables. These have been taking place between cities geographically reasonably close to one another, but from different countries over the last couple of months, and will continue through to November. And at the World Urban Parks Congress at the end of November, we'll be doing a global readout from many of the roundtable conversations. We also need much more cross-sectoral advocacy for parks now more than ever before. So whether that is coming from the health sector, whether it's coming from recreation, from environmental scientists, from urban planners, from city leadership, from property developers, we need to be developing these cross-sectoral narratives in order to make the case for parks, because they've never been more valuable or more valued than they are now. So thank you very much to World Urban Parks for the chance to be part of this webinar, and I'm very much looking forward to the discussion which is going to follow now.
Thank you, Dominic, for giving us a different perspective on some of the challenges we face and the opportunity that is before us. Our final speaker this evening is Jane Miller. Jane is the chair of World Urban Parks, and her love of nature began as a child when she grew up in the, I'm going to get this pronounced this wrong, but Adirondacks. Jane, you'll have to tell me. A 6 million acre park in upstate New York State in the United States. Over to you, Jane.
There we go. Thank you, Mark. It is the Adirondacks. It is the it's a 6 million acre park that is protected in the state constitution of New York, and it is the largest contiguous park in North America, and that is where my love of parks began. And as chair of World Urban Parks, I just really want to thank Mark, Tim, AP, Joe, and Dominic for your work. Both collectively through World Urban Parks in our partnerships with IUCN and other agencies around the world to really focus on healthy parks and healthy cities. In particular, I want to thank Kristen and Hannah for their leadership on the Healthy Parks, Healthy Cities Committee and launching our statement today on what is a really critical day, World Cities Day. World Urban Parks, I have this slide up because World Urban Parks is about creating livable, sustainable, and healthy communities that address mental health, environmental health, social health, and physical health, as we all know that parks do, and creating healthy cities with green spaces and green environments is really critical to making our cities healthy. The World Urban Parks calls on all city leaders and park managers around the world to take action and consider the important role that parks play in creating these healthy communities. And as you can see by the work that Joe, AP, Tim, and Dom, and Mark are doing around the world, it truly does make a difference. And I want to challenge each of you to get involved in World Urban Parks, become an active member, leave a legacy, leave a mark. And I want to encourage you, as Dominic mentioned, we have the World Urban Parks Virtual Congress, which is November 20th through 27th. Attend, be engaged, and be active. Let's help make the world a healthier and safer place in our cities. Thank you, Mark, back to you.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you for that summary of the presentations that we've seen and heard this evening. For me anyway, this morning or this afternoon, depending where you are around the world. I've been tracking 3 questions in the Q&A for people. The first one, Tim, was from Jim, and I think you may have answered it in the text, Tim. But did you want to just verbalise that? Is Tim still with us? Well, maybe his weather storm we got beyond them. So Jim was asking about why we started with older people, and I think in the text, Tim had set out about the different groups within World Urban Parks. Let me go to Neil's question then. So Neil's question was, how can we help the global South cities who don't have the capacity to get the benefits from parks? Who'd like to have a go at answering this one? Jane, would you like as chair to have first go?
That would be great. Could you repeat the question again? I'm trying to find it, Mark.
Yeah, certainly. So the question was from Neil McCarthy, and it was, how do we help the global South cities who don't have the capacity to get the benefits from parks? So how do we support the cities south of the equator, I guess, who perhaps don't have the same capacity as we have in the northern?
Great question. And World Urban Parks is actually very engaged in working with cities in the South, in Africa, South America, Central America, to provide them that assistance. We are partnering with organizations like ICLEI. We're partnering with Parks and Recreation Mexico, and have started significant effort in Central America to engage. There is particularly a large movement happening in Mexico and Latin America, and it's really exciting. I've been very involved in that work. We've had more challenges in Africa, to be very frank, but we now have some new partnerships where we're going to be expanding that work, providing assistance and leadership, and getting people engaged and involved in ways that they have not been before. So it's through our Emerging Cities program that we're doing that work.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you for that. Then there's a question from Anna about whether it was a canned presentation. And Anna, I wasn't sure whether this was a question for Joe, or whether it was for someone else. I think it just came up when Joe was speaking.
I'm happy to have a comment on that, Mark. I think the question was how much research has been done on what types of folks are using urban parks, and the comment was that perhaps people who live near those parks aren't always the ones using them. That, you know, I think that has been the case, but I think in the context of COVID, certainly what I've noticed and experienced, and I've talked to many people around the world at the moment, and currently writing an article on urban parks and COVID and how COVID's changed local communities' perceptions and use of parks. And I'm doing that article with Greg Moore from the Golden Gate National Park Conservancy. And we've found that COVID has really shone a light, and I think goes back to my comment about this fiercely local mindset that people have, that their local parks are really, really important, and even for people who maybe haven't realised that in the past. And I think that it also shines a light on accessibility and then the equity issue. So it is really, really important for people to have parks within close walking distance to their house, and we know that does a whole lot of things, not only for health and wellbeing, but for community cohesion. It raises the price of properties, all sorts of things. Specifically, I can't direct you to specific research, but I think that you raise a very important question, and I think that the answer to that question has changed over time. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. And I mean, just on the point of equity, it's interesting what gets in the way and becomes a barrier for people using parks. I know, for example, when I was chief executive of the Royal Parks, just the fact that they were called the Royal Parks actually used to put some communities off because they thought that it wasn't for them. I think there's a job for us as park professionals about how we get people into parks, and so that they become equitable spaces for everyone. We know that there's a greater share of parks in more wealthier areas than there are in poorer areas. But actually one of our challenges is to ensure that the people who are local and resident actually feel that it's their space and that they can come in and use it. Thank you for that, Joe. Just going back to the chat. So Jim says, thank you for that, Joe. Anna was asking about, I think particularly your slides, Joe, but I don't know whether we can make the slides more generally available so that people can see them. And then I think AP, for example, I think you had some more details on yours, which provided some details of research. Is that right, AP?
Yes, Mark, that's correct. I put some links to the back of the presentation. I don't know if we're going to be disseminating the presentation with everybody, but we can certainly make that available to everybody on the call.
Yeah, and Maggie, can we talk about how we can do that?
Certainly. So I will post the recording of today to our YouTube channel at Epley Institute, and I will send everybody that has attended and registered today a follow-up email early next week with a link to that recording, as well as any resources that you guys might want me to include.
That's great. Thank you. I'm just looking, have we covered all the questions that came in from people? Are there any more questions that people have? No? In which case, I think in LA, AP, this is what they call a wrap. And I'd just like to thank everyone who's contributed to the presentations, everyone who's joined us, especially anyone who's come from the Adirondacks and has joined us from there. And wish everyone a wonderful Friday evening, Saturday morning, Friday lunchtime, wherever you are. And thank you all and take care. And it's great to have the Healthy Parks, Healthy Cities statement launched. Take care.